Now for some more analysis on that extreme weather, we'll cross to Dr. Liz Stevens, who's Associate Professor in Climate Risks and Resilience at the University of Reading's Department of Meteorology. Hi, Dr. Stevens. Thank you so much for joining us. So heat waves are a natural phenomenon, but how do climate scientists distinguish now between something that's rather unexceptional or a natural occurrence and things that are directly tied to human-induced climate change?
When we look at the temperature extremes, it's actually quite easy to see a very clear trend and a clear increasing trend in temperatures over the past 30, 50 or so years, depending on those temperature records. And when we're seeing record temperatures being broken, it feels like almost year on year now, then it's rather obvious that this is a climate change signal, and exactly the same kind of thing that was predicted by the climate models as well.
Dr. Stevens, how can governments strike a balance between adapting to the reality of climate change as we're feeling the effects now and continuing to push for preventative measures? There's the example of air conditioning, for example, which of course contributes to global warming, but is often increasingly necessary for the most extreme situations.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult, isn't it? The most important thing to start off with is to think about mitigating those emissions. Unless we do that, then these heat waves are going to continue to become more extreme and more frequent as well. So we need to mitigate emissions, but we also need to adapt, that we're going to be getting these kind of heat waves now, and they are going to be getting worse until we do something about them. And remember as well that it's parts of the world that are experiencing 40-degree temperatures that have never experienced them before, and the urban infrastructure is simply not designed to cope with it. So here in the UK, we're expecting roads to melt, we're expecting railway lines to buckle, and we're expecting even healthy people to struggle to be able to keep cool in homes that are simply not designed for this kind of heat.
Now, do you think governments are doing enough on the preventative side, on mitigating carbon emissions? What should be prioritized if not?
It's not a case of prioritizing anything. We need to do all of it, unfortunately. It's too little too late already. We should have been doing this 20, 30 years ago. Now we need to both mitigate and adapt.
So what do you think are some of the concrete measures, Dr. Stevens, that governments can put in place now?
I think one of the clear things I've seen in recent days in the UK is that we've had very good forecasts of the heat wave. There's been a lot of communications that have really focused on the actions that individuals can take to cope with the heat. But I haven't seen enough from local authorities to really provide things like cooling centres that are quite commonplace now in North America, for example, so that people who say live in apartment blocks where you just can't cool down the indoor temperatures have somewhere to retreat to if they start to feel unwell. And doing something like that probably has an economic benefit to it too, because we really don't want to be seeing hospitals and ambulances being just completely overrun by calls to support people. There needs to be some kind of in-between support for communities.
Dr. Liz Stevens, thank you very much for coming on the show today.